Yesterday, I got to go hands-on with the brand new Nintendo Switch 2, and I got some thoughts. There's a lot of good, great little upgrades to this new version, but there are a couple of things that kind of irk me. I want to start with the price point. $449 for the Nintendo Switch 2, and that is up $150 compared to the Nintendo Switch, which came out in 2017. That retailed for $299. That's a big price jump, and obviously that was what, like 8 years ago, but the thing is, you have to take into consideration that, inflation has kicked in, things are just more expensive now, and they're probably leaving a bit of padding for all these upcoming tariffs. So as I was editing the video, we just got an announcement that the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders in the United States is being halted. You can no longer pre-order it on April 9th. The reason being is because of tariffs, and Nintendo wants to assess it. Now, if you're like me who lives in Canada, pre-orders will be going on for April 9th. So obviously, if you're interested in buying it, you still can. I personally think for $499 with the included Mario Kart is a better deal, especially if you're a fan of Mario Kart, because most of these games that are going to be coming out for the Nintendo Switch 2 are going to be expensive, like $80. Like $80 for a game. That's a lot. And I know you can make the comparison to the PC market where it already costs that kind of money, but Nintendo users have been used to $50, $60 games. So a $30 price jump is going to make a lot of people dissatisfied. But look, the device itself feels amazing. Like, it's a more refined product. I don't think it's like a revolutionary new category for Nintendo Switch, but a more refined version of the original Switch 1. They increased the size. The display is no longer 6.2. They got bumped up to 7.9 inches. Personally, I prefer a 7 to 8 inch display. Yes, it's going to be a little bit heavier, but it's still comfortable enough to game on it for long periods of time. Now, thankfully, they went with a 1080p display compared to the 720 on the original Switch, and it does make a difference. Like, everything just looks a little bit more crispy. The overall buttons, the way the controls feel, are better than the original Switch. Now, I don't know what type of controls they're using. I don't know if they're Hall effect or anything like that. They didn't specify, but these new Joy-Con 2s are bigger. Like, when you take them off the Nintendo Switch, it feels more comfortable in an adult size hands. I found the original Joy-Cons to be a tiny bit small. Also, there's less creaking. Like when I'm holding this Switch 1 right now, like, I don't know if you can hear this, but there's a lot of creaking. It didn't feel like a cohesive device. The new Switch 2, there's a little bit of creaking, but the overall product feels solid when you're holding it. The other upgrade to the Joy-Cons is the way you take them off. You still push a little button on the back, and instead of sliding them out of the case, they're magnetic, so they just pop right off. And then when you place them back on, the magnets attach and they automatically click in, and it works very, very well. The top triggers felt great. The back kickstand is also a bit different. Thankfully, it looks to be a lot more secure than the original Switch's kickstand. I don't know if you guys remember that one, but that thing was absolute trash. They fixed it on the updated model, the one I have here. I personally still think this is the best one because it's a complete full metal piece, whereas the new Nintendo Switch 2 is kind of more open. It still felt secure. It was metal. I don't foresee it being a problem, so most people will be happy with it. Same thickness, just obviously bigger, and more storage, 256 gigabytes of storage. That's a good thing because people are going to be downloading a lot of games to their Switch, and 32 gigabytes was just not enough. There's also a brand new C button on the Switch 2, which is going to be used for a special chat mode and video features. Now, we didn't get to test this at the event. It was kind of hard because there's so many people in the room. You're just not going to be able to hear anybody. I also got to play a game where we could use the new camera that's coming out. Now, that camera does not come included with the Switch 2. You got to buy it separately, but it felt good. Like, we had 4 people lined up in front of the TV and we had to perform a bunch of different actions like, punch a box, or, how many Goombas we can rest on our head without them falling over. And it was able to detect all 4 of us at the exact same time. The dock that comes with the Nintendo Switch is going to be a bit bigger to accommodate the bigger size of the Switch 2. The coloring is black instead of white like the previous one, and there's a fan inside. Now, this fan's important. It's going to keep the Switch 2 cool while it's connected to your TV, because as soon as you connect it to your TV, you unlock a various amount of different refresh rates and resolutions. I tested games out at 1080p, 120 Hz, and at 4K 60. Now, this is not something you can specifically set across the entire board. It really depends on the game you're playing. Like if it's really graphically intensive, I doubt you'll be playing it at 4K. Like some games can't even run at 60, so you might even have a lower refresh rate. But I did test out Mario Kart World running at 1080p 120 hertz. It felt good. Like we were playing with 24 people in the room. There was tons of stuff going on in the screen. The graphics don't look insanely better compared to the Switch 1, but there was an improvement. Like it was just handling everything a lot easier, most likely due to the upgraded graphics. The next game I tested was Donkey Kong Bonanza. Now, this was just a lot of fun to play because you're just basically smashing the ground, getting out bananas and gold and collecting it. And it was just a cool concept of being able to just dive deep down into the earth and throw things at objects to unlock them or enemies. And it was just a lot of fun. And it looked great on the Nintendo Switch 2. But I tested out Hades 2 because the original Hades on my regular Switch 1, it ran okay, but it wasn't the most fluid experience. Like it was fine, but not as good as it was, let's say, on my Steam Deck or on my PC. On the Nintendo Switch 2, Hades 2 ran beautifully. 1080p, 120 hertz, it was flying. Now with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, I was able to test out the Joy-Con in mouse mode. The right Joy-Con I would put on a table on top of a mouse pad, kind of like face first, okay? And then I was able to move it around and you would see the character moving back and forth like you would with a regular mouse connected to a PC. Now I'm very sensitive to latency. I play a lot of FPS games, so I can tell if there's latency happening. And there was a bit of latency. Like it's smooth, but it's not like mouse connected to your computer smooth. Like you're gonna still see a tiny bit of latency, but it's not bad. Like I wouldn't use it for, let's say, playing Fortnite or Apex Legends, but totally fine for a game like Metroid Prime 4. Unfortunately, I'm left-handed and they didn't have the left-handed mode unlocked, so I had to use the mouse with my right. And when you do that, you have to use the left Joy-Con in your left hand to do all your other activities. So like shoot and activate objects, so on and so forth. I think it's a cool idea and I'm sure there'll be a lot of games that incorporate it, but obviously it doesn't feel as good as a mouse. But for someone who likes playing with a mouse, it's still better than using a controller, if that makes any sense. But the game that really tested the performance of the Nintendo Switch 2 was Cyberpunk 2077. Now this is a working beta. They didn't show the FPS, but me playing tons of games kind of have an idea of what the frames per second were, and the Nintendo Switch 2 had a hard time. Like it just didn't feel super smooth, like maybe 20 to 30 frames per second. There was also a lot of motion blur happening to compensate to make the game feel better, but overall, it definitely gave the Switch 2 a struggle. I also got to test the Joy-Con 2 charging grip. This is an extra optional accessory, which will obviously cost more money. And there's triggers on the back, which is great because you can custom map them to anything you want. Same holds true for the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller. A little bit more expensive than the previous one, looks a lot like the previous one, but the top triggers are now great. It supports HD Rumble 2, which felt great in the games that I was playing. It also incorporates the C functionality for game chat and visual or video interaction. So there's updates to all these things, but everything is just costing a lot more. But the weirdest thing was the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour interactive game. Now this is a game that's basically a manual for the Switch 2, but you gotta pay for it. That has to be one of the worst money grabs I have ever seen. Like, don't buy it. Like, just play with your Switch, you'll figure it out. It's just not worth paying more for a tutorial. That kind of irked me in a little way. So the bottom line is the Switch 2 is still going to be a fantastic device. I think for a lot of people, they might have troubles wrapping around the thought of paying more for this because the Switch 1 originally hit the market for significantly less. Plus you add the extra cost for all these games, which are going to be a lot more as well. I don't know, some people might hold on to their original Switches a lot longer unless there's like specific titles that only support the Switch 2, then maybe you'll see more momentum to upgrade. Either way though, I'm still excited. To me, having a bigger display alone and more processing power for some of the games that I enjoy on the Switch is gonna be a worthy upgrade to me. But yeah, I feel like if you pre-order it now, it's probably a better idea because of all this nonsense with tariffs. Because who knows, like 3 or 4 months down the road, they might raise the prices again if it's going to cost them more to produce it and sell it in North America. Now, if you have any questions, let me know. Eventually, I will be reviewing it, so subscribe to the channel for that. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one.